Welcome back into another edition of Tide Talk Live. Stacey Blackwood joined with Jake Thomas, as always, to discuss the Alabama versus Texas matchup coming up this Saturday in Austin. Jake, how's it going, buddy?
Doing good, man. We had a great, past weekend of football. It's finally here. Alabama put a shellacking on Utah State. Now we got Texas looming, so I'm ready to dive into this, brother.
Yeah, this has really been one of the most highly anticipated non-conference matchups of the 2022 season, and everybody's been wanting to talk about this game. But of course, Coach Saban doesn't want to talk about it till it's that week, and we've
That's right.
arrived at this week. So we're going to be
It's
talking
here.
about the Alabama-Texas matchup here in just a minute. But as always, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and give this video a thumbs up and help us reach 100 likes. And jump in the comment section and drop your score predictions for Alabama versus Texas. Thank you so much for everybody that's already subscribed. We're well over 1,000 subscribers, and we continue to grow on YouTube daily. So
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate that. None of this will be possible without you guys. But Jake, let's just dive right into this matchup, Jake. Like I said, this is one of the most anticipated matchups of the college football season, especially in the non-conference slate. Just a big-time game because of the programs, Jake. Alabama and Texas are two of the biggest programs in the country. Texas really hasn't been relevant since that 2009 championship game where they got beat by Alabama. But they're trying to rebuild under former Saban assistant Steve Sarkisian. They've got a lot of talent on their team, but they're still trying to grow and mature as a unit. And this Alabama team looks like one of the most dominant teams in the country. Just initially, your thoughts on this matchup between Alabama and Texas?
Initially, this game is going to come down in the trenches, I believe. Texas's kind of weak link is our offensive line. If our defensive line can be dominant, we already know what the two ends are going to do in Dallas Turner and Will Anderson. But if somebody else emerges on that defensive line, like we talked about, maybe a Justin Borgby, DJ Dallas, somebody else can get after Quinn Ewers and make his life, make his life hectic all day. I just don't see how Texas could pull this upset. They've got a lot of talent offensively. They got some on defense, but you know, Alabama is Alabama, and this is good. This is going to be a tough game for Texas.
Yeah, you talked about the front seven for Alabama against Texas offensively, and I think that's really where the matchup's going to be decided.
Mm-hmm.
I think Alabama's going to be too good up front on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the front seven. Quinn Ewers is making his second collegiate start, Jake. We know that he's a really talented player, and he's
Right.
got plenty of weapons, Jake. Xavier Worthy's one of the better receivers in the country. There's a
Mm-hmm.
chance that a Jai Hall could play, the former Alabama receiver. Jaleel Billingsley will not be playing. He's still serving a 6-game suspension. But they have plenty of weapons. And then you got to think about their running back, Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the country. How Alabama plays Robinson is going to be key because not only can he run the ball, but Jake, he had 40 yards receiving in their first
Yeah.
contest with a touchdown. So he is a multifaceted back like Jahmyr Gibbs who can make plays, both as a runner and in the passing game. So he is a very dangerous weapon for this Texas offense. And it's going to be about keeping him in check more in the running game than in the passing game because I think Alabama's willing to give up a little bit through the air as long as it's not big plays for touchdowns, as long as they're holding Robinson in check on the ground. Because if they allow him to get comfortable, that will allow Quinn Ewers to be comfortable, and that's not what Alabama wants. Alabama wants to make Ewers feel the pressure of the big time moment and the big time game against the big time competition of Alabama and try to make him beat you. I think that's going to
Right.
be Alabama's game plan to shut down Robinson and make Quinn Ewers beat him. And I'm not sure that Texas really has enough, and Quinn Ewers is ready now to make those type of plays.
Yeah, yeah. Not only us talking about it, but throughout the sports world, you hear if you make one team one dimensional, it's a really struggle to win the game. So if you take away Bijan in the running game and like you said, try to make Euros beat you, it's going to be tough because like you said, he's making his second collegiate start. He's very talented, but like I said, Alabama defensively is a different animal, and it's something that he's not seen before. So
Exactly, exactly. It's going to be a whole new world. Played Louisiana Monroe in week one. No offense to those guys, but Jake,
right,
they ain't got one player on their team that would even be on Alabama's three deep.
right,
So
yeah,
it's just going to be a a totally different animal from what Quinn Ewers saw in week one. And the same can be said about what Alabama saw in week one against Utah
Right.
State, because Texas has totally different athletes than what those guys have. But uh, Alabama's just going to be too stout for Texas defensively, I believe, for Quinn and company and Bijan Robinson to keep up with Alabama and what they do offensively. And speaking of Alabama's offense, Jake, how do you see that matchup against the Texas defense?
I think if Bryce gets settled in early, he's going to make it tough. We talked about, on a review show about how Trayshawn Holden kind of showed up last week against Utah State. I think he's poised to have a big season. He's probably going to have a a good game here. Jermaine Burton probably come up, and Kobe Prentice. We didn't really speak a lot about him in our review podcast, but dude, he had as a freshman coming in and starting at slot receiver, he looked really good. So, and one thing they caught the balls that needed to be, that was right there and playable, which is key from last year's team. So as long as you're not dropping, balls and having stupid penalties, and Alabama's first unit didn't really have any stupid penalties last week. So as long as they just stay within themselves, and Jermaine Gibbs or Jameer Gibbs, my bad, has some, good running attacks, and Jace and Roydell, I think we'll be fine, offensively against that Texas defense.
Yeah, Texas defensively is they're really middle of the road
Mm-hmm.
as far as Power Five teams defensively. So I think Alabama's going to be able to move the ball against those guys. So it's going to be about finishing off drives in the red zone, not settling for a bunch of field goals. I think that's going to be really important for Alabama offensively, and you could say that for Texas defensively, because I think if you're Texas, you understand that Bryce Young and Jameer Gibbs and Jermaine Burton, Trayshawn Holden, they're going to make plays against your defense. So it's
Mm-hmm.
about the red zone. That's really where the game is going to be won, I think, on Saturday, is Alabama's ability to finish off drives with touchdowns instead of field goals. And I think that's going to be the same can be said about when Texas has the ball, because they're going to move the ball from time to time because they got some good playmakers. But it's about what Alabama does defensively in the red zone. So I think that's really where the game is going to be won, is in the red zone, because between the 20s, anything can happen. It's about
Yeah.
being opportunistic on defense, and then it's also about completing your drives with touchdowns when you have the football. So I think that's really going to be key. I look for Bryce Young. I say have a bounce back game. Look, he was phenomenal against
He
Utah State,
was.
but he missed Jermaine Burton for a long touchdown. He missed
Mm-hmm.
him in the corner of the end zone. He missed Trayshawn Holden in the corner of the end zone. So I look for Bryce to be a little more on point this week against Texas. He's had a chance to go back and see some of the things that he might have done wrong mechanically on those throws. And he even missed. There was one, I think, on Alabama's first drive of the game where they had to settle for a field goal. Jake, there was a lot of pressure coming from his left, and he had
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Prentice across the middle of the field, nobody in sight, and he just rushed his progression and just threw the ball away instead of taking a sack. If he'd have took another millisecond to just dump it across to Prentice, Jake, he'd have probably scored a touchdown there. So it's about
Yep.
learning from those mistakes, working on your mechanics, making sure that you improve on the week before. And if Bryce does that, I think you're going to see a different Bryce Young as far as his accuracy goes. And that could spell some trouble for this Texas defense.
Absolutely. One thing I want to say about Texas, um, in order for you guys to have a shot early on, you're going to have to get your crowd energized. You're going to have to make a couple of big plays early, and you've got to use that Texas heat to your advantage. This game's going to be played at 11 o'clock in that Texas heat. Going to be 9,500 degrees probably, and it's just going to be miserable until Alabama gets adjusted to that. Now they do play in the heat and humidity down here, so they Texas is going to have to use that to their advantage early on, and try to get a couple of deep shots and a couple of big plays before
Well,
Alabama gets adjusted.
I'll say this: the humidity is not near as bad in Texas as it is in
Right.
Alabama. So I don't think
Mm-hmm.
really the heat is going to play that much of a factor into the game. The time of the game is what stinks. I mean, that's
Yeah.
11 o'clock in the morning after you've traveled from Alabama to Texas. I know they'll get there a day or two before, but it's just you're not at home. You're not being able to sleep in your own bed or
Yeah,
in a comfortable situation. So that part of it's a little tricky. But Jake, once you get between those lines, it's about who can execute.
that's
And
right.
I think Alabama's the team that's going to be able to execute the most in this matchup. I think they're just a little too talented, a little too experienced for Texas at the moment. If this game was being played, 2 years from now, when Sarkisian's had a little more time, Quinn Ewers has had a little more time, or maybe even Arch Manning at that point. I don't feel like Texas has quite enough firepower to keep up with Alabama, because I think Alabama's going to make a lot of plays on this Texas defense. Alabama really didn't rush the ball a lot against Utah State. I think Jahmyr Gibbs had the most carries on the team with 9. So
Yeah,
I really expect Gibbs to have double that amount of rushing attempts against Texas. I really do. And I think there's a chance, he broke a 63-yarder to really, or 53-yarder to start the second half. I really feel like he could have 1 or 2 of those against Texas as well.
yeah, I agree. I feel like he's poised to have a big game this this Saturday as well. So I'm anxious to see what he can do.
Yeah, no doubt. But I really feel like Alabama's going to handle business right now. They're a 20-point favorite over Texas.
Wow.
That's a lot of points on the road against a team that has the talent that Texas has. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on the score, Jake? How are you feeling this game goes for Alabama?
I mean, if Alabama plays to their potential and plays like we know Alabama can, they will win by 20 plus. Um, maybe I was just being a little bit too cocky this year, and I was doing it all in good fun. But I said I don't see anybody, if Alabama plays up to their potential every single game, how anybody can stay within 3 scores of us. I mean, this is our first challenge. We'll see what they can do.
Yeah, so you're thinking Alabama covers that point spread, I'm assuming?
It would be close. I could see this being a 17 in between 17 and 24 point game.
All right, well, go ahead and just give us your score prediction for the contest.
I want to say 48 to 21.
48. Ooh. So a 27-point win for Alabama on the road at Texas, scoring 48 points in Austin. I wouldn't be shocked if that was the score, but I'm going to go a little more conservative approach. I think Alabama wins this game 38-17. That covers the 20-point spread. A 3-touchdown win for Alabama on the road in Austin against the Texas Longhorns. 38-17 Alabama, with Jahmyr Gibbs having his introduction game to the Crimson
Mm-hmm.
Tide and to college football, because he's played at Georgia Tech, man. There's not a lot of people that know about Jahmyr Gibbs.
Right. Yeah. They're fisting too.
Yeah, they're fisting to learn the name Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to explode, I think, this weekend against Texas.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I know the team will be ready. And, man, football's back. I'm just, that's the biggest thing is football is back. And I'm excited that it's back.
No doubt. But there's a lot to look forward to here for the Alabama football team, a big season ahead of them. And it really gets started again. I know the season started last week against Utah State, but this game on the
This
road
is it.
at Texas, what a great non-conference matchup. And I'm excited for the matchup on Saturday. I hate that it's going to be 11 o'clock in the morning. We got to listen to Gus Johnson and Joe Klatt for 3 hours, but
Ugh.
that is what it is.
I'm still drinking my coffee at 11 o'clock in the morning. Jeez, it's gonna be rough. I'm going to get up early just to get all that in before 11. It's wild, man. It's crazy, but that's like you said, that's what sucks about this game. But overall, I think Alabama is going to play how Alabama does, and they're going to have a big win in Austin.
Well, look, they come out and made a statement against Utah State, but Jake, this is where you make a statement nationally
Right.
about who you are as a team. You can make an identity for yourself for this 2022 season. And Saban's always talked about making an identity for yourself, and there's no better way to do that than on the road at Texas, by going in there and just really showing the country how dominant you can be this season.
Absolutely. This is the time to make a statement, and I believe Alabama does.
I agree with you. We both think
Mhm.
they covered the spread there in Austin. Jake's saying 48-21, and I'm saying 38-17, the Crimson Tide. But that's going to wrap up our Texas preview. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and like we said, jump in the comments and drop your score predictions for this matchup with the
Drop it.
Texas Longhorns. All right, for Stacey Blackwood and Jake Thomas, this has been Tide Talk Live. Until next time, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.